Why are RPG horror stories so gosh darn popular? There's a reason why our RPG horror stories is a really popular Reddit thread, and also why for years in the D&D and tabletop RPG hobby, there are countless RPG horror stories dating back to even before D&D. Why is it so popular, and better yet, why do so many people consume that kind of content, whether that be on blog posts, videos, or especially on YouTube and TikTok? Well, I think it's a combination of increased popularity in tabletop RPGs and because people like drama. Why I say drama is because when you go on YouTube, Facebook, or any form of social media, you notice especially real quick that drama can sell because stories sell, and people, I think, like to find train wrecks. They like to see people do dumb stuff and inevitably fail at it or succeed, and that's no exception in the RPG hobby. When you see a RPG horror story, it might be something outlandish, like say a GM forcing their weird fetish on players, or a power gamer destroying the entire game, or a group of players just wanting to be selfish and unfair and cause a havoc on the GM. Or your players just not showing up and then afterwards showing up 3 hours late, 4 hours late, or 5 hours late. There are millions of stories out there because you're dealing with people. You're dealing with all the messy qualities of people, whether that be their weird fetishes that you really don't want to know about, or B, you're dealing with, well, people who don't care about each other. Now, am I saying that this is always the case? Absolutely not. In fact, I think RPGs are a great way to interact with people, but drama sells, and the algorithm is no exception to that. And on top of that, it works because, well, RPG horror stories are also maybe easy content to make, especially online. When I say RPG horror stories are easy content to make, it's because a lot of these horror stories are being pulled from online blog posts, Reddit threads, or from 4chan posts or wherever you go to find a D&D or tabletop RPG story. And there are quite a lot of YouTubers who read off those stories online, and let me be clear, do they not add stuff to it? Yeah, they add pictures, videos, graphics, drawings, and all kinds of edits to make their content a lot more appealing and fun. From All Things D&D, Mr. Ripper, Crit Crab, or Crispy Tavern, to name a few YouTubers out of the hundreds that are out there, they're creating quality content by adding funny images, videos, and editing, and clever ways of engaging the audience to help you understand and laugh at the horrible story that someone posted on Reddit. At the same time, I'm sure there are plenty of content creators out there who just pull a story off from Reddit without asking, and then afterwards, well, just read it off. Is that stealing? And is that easy content? It depends. As a content creator myself, I would argue that between video editing, writing a script, recording, and all the niche of doing my research, it takes a considerable amount of time. Of course, if you're just pulling a post off of Reddit and then reading it and not doing any of the work to edit it, then yeah, is it easy content to make? Duh. But is it quality content? No. So RPG horror stories are particularly popular not because they're easy content to make inherently, but because they're most accessible to a wide diversity and a wide audience. Whether you have loads of edits in it or whether you have no edits, hearing someone talk while you're doing your day-to-day activities can be a great way to use your time and also a great way to relax or a fun time. Whatever the case is, RPG horror stories can be easy content to make. And of course, I think another reason is that, well, games like D&D made it super popular. And on my channel, I've made mention several times before in this video especially, D&D's popularity is because of its longevity, its accessibility online and offline, and also because of the massive market share it holds on the tabletop RPG hobby. When you say tabletop RPG to someone who's not in the hobby, they're going to look at you like you're crazy. Why? Because that doesn't mean anything to them. Maybe some might even think, oh, is that just a JRPG or an RPG? Yeah, especially for someone who's never played one before. But if you say Dungeons and Dragons, then most people, even folks who have never played a tabletop RPG in their entire life, will have some vague idea of what you're talking about. That's because D&D especially holds a special place in the RPG and gaming hobby. And to that extent, horror stories expand on that. The horrible occasions that happen at your table, online or offline, are usually from D&D or D&D-like games, so I would argue that the popularity of RPG horror stories also comes from the popularity of Dungeons & Dragons within the past 10-20 years especially. Also, I think the reason these are popular, it's because GMs and players alike don't want to have RPG horror stories. No one in their game, I think, who with any kind of sanity, wants to have someone go on their long 25-page tangent on why they deserve to have a big titty anime girl as every single NPC in their medieval fantasy. And I don't think anyone likes playing with power gamers or folks who metagame to such an extent that it ruins the game. No one likes that, I think. And to an extent, RPG horror stories serve a clear purpose of helping new and old players alike bond over the shared feeling of dealing with jerks and assholes in their game. Now, am I sitting here telling you that these are the perfect way to learn about RPGs, like D&D or whatnot? Probably not, but they are telltale signs of what you should and should not look for in a game, and also are helpful for all people who are looking to get into the hobby. Because everyone wants to have a fun time at the table, online or virtual. I made this emphasis several times in other videos, but no one wants to have an unfun and unhappy time at their game. That's why there's plenty of people who just don't play games or are forever GMs because they don't want crappy players, or they're forever players because they don't want crappy GMs. It all depends on the player in mind. So RPG horror stories are popular because people like watching train wrecks, and plus because the algorithm always brings in content that's related to it, inevitably trapping us into an endless cycle of watching content over and over again while we sit there on our computer screens and television screens for hours on end. Yikes. Anyhow, despite the fact that I might not have a life, this doesn't mean I'm berating the people who create content that are related to RPG horror stories. In fact, I love their content, and it's one of the things that inspires me to make content. RPG horror stories suck, and I don't want any player or GM to have those. So that's why I talk about this stuff. It's to help you and myself become better players and game masters along the way. And I actually have a video about 8 tabletop RPG tools that might be helpful to mitigating issues, or a video on why you should improve your GM game here. If you're interested in that content, be sure to like and subscribe if that's your thing. If not, always dislike. Your choice at the end of the day. And as always, everyone, I'm your average everyday queer host, Blurdy Disposition. I hope you all have an awesome day. Ciao!